welcome to Chanakya's Face Off. Today we have with us a very eminent guest, Dr. R. Vaidyanathan, retired professor of finance at IIM Bangalore. Dr. Vaidyanathan has two Fulbright scholarships and a fellow of ICSSR who teaches in various universities in USA and UK. He was a member of the National Security Advisory Board under the National Security Council during the year 2019 and 2020. There are a lot of topics to discuss with him, but today we're going to talk about his most recent book, Caste as a Social Capital, and about migrant laborers issue that is happening in Tamil Nadu. It's a great privilege to have you in Chanakya, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Malaki. Thanks a lot for that kind introduction. It's always a pleasure to talk to Chanakya channel fans. And I thank Pandey for giving me this opportunity and you for providing this opening. Now, this book, Caste as Social Capital, you were mentioning, it got published in 2019. Unfortunately, the company, Westland Publication, they got closed. Not due to publishing my book. Independent of that, they got closed. And so this book is currently not available from their stores as well as Amazon. But Penguin has come forward to republish this book. So that should be released around June, July. So the audience who are interested in the book and have to wait till that time, the print copy. Obviously, Penguin will also be releasing other type of copies and other things. That's a very brief idea about the book. The book titled is Caste as Social Capital. This is the original book done by this what one can call Westland, and so this is the title of the book, Caste as Social Capital. Maybe Penguin changes the cover, and that's quite possible. And the idea of the book came to me from a couple of sources. Earlier part of the century, I had occasion to visit some places in Namakkal, Coimbatore, Erode, and other places. I found thriving textile as well as osiari. This badian and other undergarments and other thing. They are the largest exporters actually to Europe
Tirupur
and
and other areas, right? Tirupur area.
yeah, in those days itself, I'm talking about beginning of the century. Now it's much larger and bigger, and I was very curious because that's a tradition. These are by what are popularly known as Gounders or from Kongunad Vellalars, and they are mainly agriculturists actually. How come they got into this manufacturing? I was really curious, and there was a drought. It appears in the earlier, around the 50s, and a couple of them to meet the issue of the drought, they thought that why don't we make something else, and also parallelly have some business and other things. They started on a small scale, and it began to develop, and community help was tremendous. Of course, in Tamil it's called Samudayam and Samugam, and it's the same thing as Jati. There is nothing because in Tamil Nadu the Jati is supposed to have been abolished. So they use the word Samugam. It's the same thing. You call it by another name. That's all. And these counters, they began to help each other develop the market, domestic as well as international. And they have a very large export market actually. Many of them are, 10th pass, 9th pass. That's all. Nothing more than that. But phenomenally entrepreneurial and risk taking. And actually, I recall one event. I was coming from Paris after attending some seminar or something. I was in cattle class in the aeroplane. In the first class, not even business, first class, there was one gentleman from this Tirupur basis. He's an exporter. He was having a dhoti and very simple actually, but he's a premium customer because every fortnight at least he used to travel to France and Europe and other places. For Air France, used to treat him as a very. Anyhow, I had occasion to meet with him. I asked him, I was talking to him, I asked him, sir, you know only Tamil. you don't know English or French or anything like that. How do you manage your global business empire? He told me, Professor, you should know one thing. In France, also people don't know English. They, they know only French. See, we talk the language of money. So that's a thing. And there is a huge market coming up in Eastern Europe that time. So he told that's why he went there. I asked him, are you planning to expand? No, he said, my nephew, I am asking you. This is the
Mm.
fundamental issue in terms of market. Whenever market increases, they themselves need not necessarily take it up and do it. They can allocate it to one of their community people or family people or something, and then it. This is something. It's what I call a cooperative type of a capitalism, not
So
a
they don't want to
full-fledged.
create a monopoly. They don't want to create a monopoly.
No, they
No.
have. He says I have enough actually. I have, and it is also very difficult in these fields to create monopoly and other thing because there are so many competitors from Latin America, from other parts of Europe, and he says let others also benefit. Then when I was in US, I was visiting a lot of places in the West Coast. I found quite a number of motels there are owned by Patels, and actually some places they are called jokingly as motel Patel motels, and so many of them were uh, with the Patels. And again, I inquired, and most of it is single, family owned. The mother-in-law may be sitting in the cash counter. The daughter-in-law may be, cleaning up the rooms, and not maybe 20, 25 rooms or something. And each room is very, I would say, adequate and frugal in the sense one cot, one AC, ceiling fan, one television, that type of thing only. And obviously, it's a what you call breakfast type of a place only, where
Mhm.
you have the common area where you can prepare your own breakfast. Very simple breakfast in terms of if you want, you can have some sort of a
I
bread
think
slices,
cereal,
toasted
bread, yeah.
and cereal, and some coffee tea you can make because there is a corner there. That's all. So I was wondering, almost the entire coast you had hundreds of these motels run by Patels. It appears again earlier some people came and started it, and then they developed it, and it became very popular because of cleanliness and no noise, and reasonably priced, extremely reasonably priced. So for business travelers, particularly the middle income companies and low income companies, this became a very very attractive proposition to stay there, because basically what you are going to spend the night only there. Otherwise you go to the company, have lunch there, and night outside dinner and come back and go. And again, borrowing and lending within the community. And if there is any failure, it was accepted. It was not derided or it looked down upon or something. This has failed due to some reason or something, and they were always helped by the group. That is something
Mm.
important. And from there, they went into this petrol bunk type of thing. And I was told recently that even trekking industry they are having significant hold these days. And so then I was to Antwerp in Amsterdam, Belgium thing. It's a very major diamond center. I went there not to buy diamond, but to attend a finance conference. I was in a again a small inn or something you may call it, and it's not a big hotel or something. But in the morning, in the dining location, I found a board called Jain Meal. I was a bit curious actually, because I have seen in some places vegetarian or halal or this type of thing, but not and they told
Jane.
they are our major customers. Jains are our. Then I investigated and found this Antwerp diamond trade is significantly controlled by Palampur Jains. These Palampur Jains may be, 0.0001% of our population, but they are having a big hold. Actually, in the 1970s, Jews used to have 70% of the trade in that diamond center. And when I was visiting around 2010, The Jains are having 70% trade. Wall Street Journal wrote a nice article telling the first time Jews were defeated in business without violence. This is something very, very interesting article I was referring to. So,
Sir, I have.
and
Uh,
polishing center is in Surat. You
mm,
see, raw diamonds are imported from Africa, Russia, and other places, polished in Surat, and sold in the global market at Antwerp. This is the
mm,
thing. And polishing is also done significantly by Patel community. And in the Antwerp, as I told you, the Jains are very, very leading in terms of their business acumen is something unbelievable, unparalleled actually. And that's these type of thing triggered in me what is the role of a caste or a community in business? Is do they have any? And everywhere they were discussing how they are helping each other, how they help to finance funding, acceptance of failure, risk taking, and market when it get enlarged, passing it on to others. So many things. Then when I came to India again, Sivakasi, I went, and there I was very interested to know about the history of the industry. It appears in the 30s, early 40s, there was a huge amount of drought and agriculture crisis. Many of them left Sivakasi to Chennai and various places, and some of them went to Calcutta. And some of you may know, those days, Calcutta used to be the commercial capital of India, not Bombay. So whenever there is a crisis, people used to move to Calcutta because you will get some job or something there in some industry. So these two Nadar people, they got a job in Vimco in those days, and they picked up some idea of making matches and how to combine these various
chemi-
ingredients into making matches.
mm,
And they came back to after some early 40s. They came back to their place. And in Trichy, one Ayamuthanadar, he is a financier come businessman. He provided some funds to them, and they started a very small scale matches making industry and for the local groups and area and other thing in that zone or in that they were distributing matches and slowly it the word of mouth it spread that their matches is good and it is as good as anything else and so they put the thing and you'll be surprised that small thing started has become a very major industry of running into 6,000, 7,000 crore and roughly 70% estimate suggest of matches is made in that area and they branched off into diversified into making crackers because matches and the cracker industry are not very different from each other and the cracker industry required huge amount of paper in terms of rolling the crackers and so they went into paper printing and other thing and they have some of the finest offset printing in the whole world and I was told I was surprised actually when Obama was the president of here he ordered some 700 or so diaries exclusively to be given to the well-wishers not political leaders or those people but to his personal friends and other things and all the 700 were shipped from Saukasi. That is the
mm.
printing thing. Very, many of these things are not adequately advertised. Actually, I had occasion to see one of them. I can only see. I can't buy that there. So, such a fascinating one actually, in terms
Mm.
of its get up, in terms of its layout, and thinness of the paper. Something very very good actually. Anyhow, so the again, when I uh, investigated, I found that significant amount of money was provided by the community. They have moi elududal, one of the methods of it's something like practically it's something like giving a loan, but on a what one may loosely call voluntary basis. So they
Mm.
convene a meeting, provide lunch or dinner and other thing, and people can contribute. People can write there. There is no major covenant or major documentation or something. It's mostly based on trust. This is something very interesting, and they provide money, 10,000 rupee, 50,000 rupee, another thing, and this is used in business, and it is returned after a period of time, another. So basically, it's a relationship based
And all these are interest free, is it? These kind of help
interest.
and
No, no, their interest is there very much.
interest is there. Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah, very much. Sometimes very some better interest than the open market usurious interest. When you go and borrow money from an unknown money lender or something, you are charged very heavily. But this
Right.
is within the caste and within the extended family, so it is much lower actually, relatively, but higher than the bank interest.
Yeah,
But the
because
most important,
since you mentioned Sivagasi, right? They have actually formed this Tamil Nadu Mercantile Bank, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
they,
originally
yeah,
that is another bank actually.
not,
They
yeah,
are
yeah, it
doing
was,
extremely well. It's
yeah,
a very
yeah.
good example actually.
Hmm.
And these are all see, we are not a contract based civilization. We are a relationship based civilization, trust based civilization. Even today, large portions of our transaction take place based on trust, not
Hmm.
based on all these documents and others may be there, but it's not given so much amount of importance or anything. More important is the person. More important is your relationship with him and other thing. This is something very interesting. And this Moya Idol is also mostly based on trust. There is
Hmm.
no documentation, legal proof, and other thing. And if I remember, there was some movie also. One fellow gives some 2 lakh loan and then passes away immediately. He dies, and there is no proof. But the borrower's family, and they came to know, they somehow or other mobilized funds to return this. This is something very interesting. They need not have done it at all because absolutely there is nothing can be done in
Right.
this particular type of cases. The point I want to stress is the community and in what other way they are useful is very important. Many of them told me when we lend money or something, there is a cost pressure on the borrower to return, and that is something which the NPA is very very low actually in this type of situation, because it is more based upon relationship, trust, and how can you borrow
Self-respect.
money from, yes, how can you borrow money from such and such and not repay another thing. That's a major sense of shame will occupy in case we are not meeting our obligation. So then I decided to extend my study and went into Gujarat, where the Patels or Patedars, they are very largely dominant in Surat diamond industry, as well as in, you would have heard about this clock, and
Hmm.
which is very famous actually. That is also in Gujarat, actually, Morbi area.
Hmm.
So, Ajanta clocks, another thing. They have
Hmm.
expanded into China also now. Anyhow, so these are all caste-based group. All of this, and then I went to Punjab. This Ludhiana sports good industry, and Ramgarias and various other. Of course, as per United Nations, there are 840 economic clusters, but in practice, many reports suggest it can be as high as 2,000 small economic clusters in the country, and almost all these clusters are caste clusters. Very important. Even though government never recognized this as a caste cluster, they always used to write about how the economy started, how the economy is flourishing. All, very sad actually, because we don't recognize our innate strength. These clusters didn't come like Swayambhu, on its own.
Sir, I
They
have a
were
question.
created.
I have a question here. Many of the
Yeah,
castes that you were referring to, they were all OBCs, right? How much
yeah, yeah.
of how much of the SC/ST caste have you seen in business, sir? These kind of
Yeah, there is
caste
also,
clusters.
actually, I will come to that. I am going to come to
Okay.
that. There
Okay,
is a
sorry.
Dalit Chamber of Commerce today.
Oh, okay.
Not many people even aware of it. And the
Hmm.
finance minister consults Dalit Chamber of Commerce before
Hmm.
budget, among various other chambers of commerce. And there is one Saroj. She is one of the this tube manufacturer, and
Hmm.
based upon UP. She is 600, 700 crore business. There is a Makwana one group which is also spread in Middle East, one of the large groups. So there are very in Tamil Nadu itself. There are very many groups which have come up, which are Dalit based and linkages and other thing. except they are not of the 40s vintage or something. They are more, 60s and 70s they started, and some of them have built very large empires actually. So,
Mm.
and also Muslims, very important. They have also built very big empires actually. One of the IIM student, I remember, he was my student. He went into business after the thing. He started this idli making batter, ID idlis. It used to be. It is called.
Oh,
It
I
became so
know.
popular.
Yeah, it's
ID.
a
It's
very,
a
very
Islamic.
popular brand. Mm.
It is Islamic actually. Not many people even know about it. ID is Eid. He has put, instead of putting EID, he has put ID. Anyhow, that's not important. Now, the most important thing is all type of groups are entering into business. What I call in my book, if you see one chapter on Vaishyavisation of India,
Exactly.
everybody in India is becoming Vaishya. Nobody is interested in, and the government has to do the role of the Kshatriya. That's a traditional model in India. Government must,
Protect the business.
unfortunately, government in the 50s went into become Vaishyas in terms of starting all these bread companies, hospital, these
Public
hotels.
holdings.
Slowly
And
public, now they are slowly giving it up
mm.
because now it is realized it's not the business of the government to be in business. So that's a fundamental thing. So Vaishyavisation is taking place. All sorts of everybody, the upper Brahmins, for instance, they are all into business very actively. Small business, particularly after the IT boom, quite a number of them have jumped into that in terms of starting their own small ventures and other thing, or large businesses like your Shriram Group, like so many other groups are there in southern part of the country. The other OBC groups well known are GVK, GMR, and various other. Huge portion of this business as of today is in the OBCs because they are number wise they are very large. That is one.
Mm.
Plus, most of them are agriculturists who sell off their land and then the surplus they invest in business. Some of them succeed, like East Godavari, for instance. Quite a number of these Kamas have sold their land and came and invested in film industry and went bonkers. So that is something. Anyhow, so that is all type of caste are into business. We are not unfortunately recognizing this. We are castigating it. Caste is a very major social capital is not recognized. I told you 800 clusters as per UN.
Mm.
Almost all the clusters are caste clusters. They are not Swayambhus. And in 1980, if I remember, there was a report by Planning Commission about leather industry, wherein first time they mentioned about Muslims playing a very large role because the leather industry, particularly the cow leather, Hindus are not very much active in, but Muslims are very active. They are one of the largest exporters also of the leather goods from Ambur and other thing in South Ranipet area, and from
Manipulative.
Agra and other thing, Kanpur in the north, and so many. First time they mentioned the role of Muslims in the leather industry. After that, that's the only time they recognize that some community can play a role in this type of industry. And later, of course, a lot of other write-up has come, including Harish Damodaran. I mentioned to you
Yeah.
about that his book, and
India's new
so
capitalist. Mhm.
we are not, we have an uncanny ability to abuse ourselves. Let me be very blunt about it. All over the country, every. So caste is one of the critical social capital, but we malign it. We don't give importance to it. We don't actually in any other country. Somebody like Gounder, somebody like Patel, somebody, all these communities would have been recognized and appreciated and awarded. Actually, not in our except in their own groups. Outside places, we make it appear as if they have committed a big crime by starting businesses and providing huge job opportunities and other things. Anyhow, and that's we are
I-
self-abusive according to me. We
because
are
in
masochist. We
states
are
like
not
Tamil,
sadist. We don't
no,
abuse.
in states like Tamil Nadu, sir, caste is you identify yourself with the caste. It means that you're it's been like they're being made to feel guilty about identifying themselves with
No, no,
caste.
actually,
Such
Tamil
kind
Nadu
of
is yeah, yeah. I will tell you, Tamil Nadu is the most casteist state in the whole country. You know, intercaste marriages are practically negligible in Tamil Nadu alone, not in other states. One. Two, nobody is, every representation, MLA, MLC, councillor is all based on caste. In which constituency, which caste is dominant, and that fellow will be put by both the parties. And then one of them will win. So this is not a single person of SCST has stood in general constituencies of one in Tamil Nadu. Never in the last 75 years of history. In other states, it has happened, not in Tamil Nadu. So it's a highly casteist state actually. It's a highly hypocritical. Outside the pretending that there is no caste, you see this Nadar Association, Tevar Association, and Naidu groups, Christian groups. Christians also have huge amount of caste in Tamil Nadu actually. Everywhere they claim that there is no caste, but plenty of there is period. And otherwise, why would they ask for reservation for Dalit Christians? By definition, these people have become Christians to avoid caste, right? That is the propaganda, but which is not true actually in practice. So all this is don't go by all this what you may loosely call propaganda. Practice is totally different than what is seen outside. And Tamil Nadu is well known for its film industry, optics. What to show, that is much more important. Then in the next discussion, we will see we are more interested in others should not consider that we are attacking or we are ridiculing the North Indians. We may do it, that is separate. I am not telling we are doing it, but we may do, but it should not be known to others.
Perception. Mhm.
That is extremely critical for us. That is the basis of the film industry. What is the one of the basis is perception, image is very
Right.
critical. So
I have
let
one.
me conclude by
Sorry,
telling we
I have
must
one important
celebrate.
question on this. Your
We
book, sir.
must
I just want.
celebrate caste actually. If you
Okay.
ask me, we must celebrate and this idiotic, stupidest that Tamil Iyengar girl from Seattle. That what is her name? Shama. She's a
Yeah,
Tamil
who
girl.
voted? Yeah, who voted? Who brought this resolution?
You did this whole thing. These are just propaganda and these are useful for
I'm
political
not
purposes.
sure our viewers may be aware of it, but recently the Seattle City Council has agreed to add caste as one of the non-discriminatory factor, and the City Council has voted for it. It's happened recently in USA in the Seattle City.
Yeah,
So
Seattle, correct. And what is going to happen? Quite a number of these cases will come up. Everybody will claim that I am not promoted because of my caste. I am not all sorts of things. And I am sure in a couple of months, maybe year, they will say H1B visa should be on caste basis. That is, first preference should be given to SC, ST, OBCs, then upper caste and green card also. This demand will be there, whether they will be. So
And
anyhow,
one more point, there's people like Tenmudi Soundararajan, they have been supported by in tweets by CM Stalin, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Stalin
yeah,
has
yeah.
appreciated this
There's a
move.
very huge lobby, both working in Tamil Nadu, outside, as well as in US, among very many groups for this purpose. That most interesting part, if you may call it interesting at all, is that Seattle originator or a big shouter is an Iyengar from Tamil Nadu, actually, who is married to, who was perhaps married to that Maharashtrian. Anyhow, her name is
So before you
Shama
conclude
Savant.
on this topic, sir, I have one question on your book, sir. So in the first I don't know, first chapter or second chapter I read, you have mentioned about you have busted a very common myth that is prevailing in the society, that the OBCs and SC/STs of India have not been educated, have not been given rights to education. You have quoted the book by The Beautiful Tree. So you've quoted that book. So can you? I
Dharampal.
just Dharampal's Beautiful Tree book.
Yeah, yeah.
So
See, actually, before the arrival of the British, we had a huge amount of Gurukulam system.
yeah.
The secular part of it, there was no discrimination or absolutely nothing in that Gurukulam. Actually, Dharampal, does a lot of work, primary work, and then he has published in the year between 1800 and 1820 the majority of the participants in the school system in India were SC, ST, OBCs. He gives the data,
Right.
for Madras presidency, for Travancore presidency, various places. So this is a myth actually that before British came and destroyed the existing system and created this English-based education system in order to create what are known as Indians who are basically by skin and outside appearance they are Indians, but by soul and their thinking they are Britishers. Britishers.
Sir,
So
does
this
this
is what.
also mean those communities were not socially downtrodden during that period?
No, no, no. This whole thing, you see, the caste as a hierarchy, that is the so-called Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and so this Shudra was made in 1881. First census of Britain only created this hierarchy. This is very important for your viewers. There is no earlier book somebody can quote me, not the book written by British, but original text where the fourfold categorization of caste was there. There is nowhere except in one of the slokas in Purusha Sukta, very, very old one, where it is told that the Brahmins came from the face and the
Yes.
Kshatriyas came.
Mm.
And that is not ridiculing or anything. The feet of a god is not something which is of lower category. That's only in the European tradition. In our tradition, feet is worshipped actually. When you go to some temples, Vaishnava temple particularly, they keep the sadari on your head. That's
Ferrari.
the feet of the god. So this whole thing is twisted and anyhow over a long period of time, the missionaries and the British had distorted our history, and many of those things we have hook, line, and sinker. We have taken it and digested also. That is the most unfortunate thing. That statistics in my book about the so-called reservation system. How in the 69% is reserved in Tamil Nadu, for instance,
Tamil Nadu. Yeah.
and even in the so-called quote unquote open quota of remaining 31%, majority of the seats are occupied by OBCs and SC/STs. This is something very, very important. Actually, I have provided data for earlier year where in medical seats, actually,
I saw that.
top top 100, there is only one person who belong to so-called upper caste. One person. 99 belonging to OBC and SC/ST. So, and unfortunately, it is not set off. That means if OBCs are getting into the open quota, that's not set off against their reservation in the 69%. So, what is happening is quite a huge number of upward movement is taking place, which is not recognized actually by the government or by the activist. I want to mention this also.
Last question. You have written about the Rig Veda and how people, women were out of the seers who were taught the Rig Veda, 17 seers. You have mentioned
Yeah,
their names and you have given that they have been taught the Rig Veda, and even women had the tradition of wearing Upanayanam and everything. So
yeah, yeah.
this is completely contradicting to what is being practiced today, because all along the Dravidian ideology in Tamil Nadu have been telling that Hinduism has treated women very unfairly. So
Which
what you
is
have
not
written,
true. These
yeah.
all these changes came about during the British time after
Mhm.
1881. So many, and during the British time, they wanted to make convert the Indian society into a mirror image of the British society. That is why they told a fourfold classification.
Mm.
That is, they say in England we have the senior ICS officers, junior officers, clerks, and peons. Fourfold category. Same thing we wanted to replicate in India. That is why we started this ABCD categories.
1, 2, 3.
So during the
Yeah.
British time, they
Mm.
wanted India to be a mirror image of Britain.
Mm.
And incidentally, Britain women fought very heavily, and including in US, to get even voting rights. The entire suffragette movement. And Switzerland had voting rights. You believe me, in 1971. Whereas
Right.
we had voting rights in 1920s. Large number of women in Mysore presidency and other. So, somewhere in the middle we lost it, and it is appropriate for us to get it back actually.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. It's a privilege. Thank you.
Okay.